Battlestar Galactica, Season 3, Episode 14, The Woman King is over, but we have to go fracking down the hatch to talk about it here on RHAP. We know scripted TV, it's down the hatch. It's BSG, Season 3, Ep 14, The Woman King. I'm Josh Wigler, apologizing for a little bit of a late podcast this time around. I came down with the sicky ickies, and a doctor tried to kill me. So a lot happened in the last week, Mike Bloom.
I mean, like, half of that is true, which I guess is sort of like the ethos of this entire episode is like, God, I feel like I almost should have just, like, I spoke too soon 2 weeks ago of like, well, this is a weird little batch of episodes, isn't it? Truly, The Woman King. And Josh, I should say, we are pronouncing this episode incorrectly. We do need to put the punctuation in when the title is actually dropped in
The
this
Woman
episode,
King.
which is, I will go so far as to say, the worst title I have heard for anything in my life since The Happening. Like, this is 15 plus years in the making.
Is The Happening such a bad title? You remember it all these years later?
Yeah, but you also remember, like, Tiananmen Square, like, 25 years later. Like, you ever hear of the Streisand effect?
Wow, yes. The Happening in Tiananmen Square definitely on the same level. In terms of
throw the Woman King up there. We're building our Mount Rushmore, Josh.
Yeah, well, let's put the Woman King right up there with The Happening and Tiananmen Square as three of the worst things to ever be named.
Yeah, like a very embroiled political protest, and Mark Wahlberg going, "What?
Yeah.
No."
Yeah. Actual deaths versus fictional tree plant-based death. The Woman King certainly deserves its place. I think across the shows that you and I have podcasted about here on Down the Hatch, certainly a contender for worst title for an episode. And then I would also submit a candidate for one of the worst episodes of any of the shows we've talked about. Once upon a time, when we were talking about Black Market, I said, this is most people's least favorite episode of BSG. I think that the other one is the one we have watched this week, Mike, is The Woman King. And I know that that's not true across the board. And I will even say that in the first portion of watching this episode, there were a few moments where it's like, this is actually a lot better than I remember. It's like, wow, the conversations they're having about like trust issues around inoculation and people in power controlling that stuff. And I'm not going to take the shot. You know, like it felt very real. It felt
everything has happened before. Everything will happen again.
But then the doctor is actually trying to kill people. It's like, oh, well, this is
Dr. Death.
This is setting us back. This is setting back the cause centuries at this point. So you had me in the first half, and you start to lose me in the second. Not a beloved episode, Mike Bloom, The Woman King. Maybe the reason why I really needed to take a week off. It's like, oh, The Woman King got to summon some energy to talk about this.
Yeah, and I will say that I don't even say it had me in the first half. It intrigued me in the first half because it's talking about, and I'm always a sucker for this, right? Like some civilian storylines, like getting to check in with, that's what I love about something like Andor. One of the many things is like checking in outside of like our big named characters to see what's happening and like getting to address like a pseudo refugee crisis we kind of have on our hands with all these civilians that got picked up from New Caprica, and like, where are we putting them? Bringing up yes, everyone kind of seems ubiquitous now, except for the Sagittarians, who now obviously have a very specific way of thinking of things.
By the way, I hate those filthy, little, moronic Sagittarians. I can't stand these people. These sniveling Sagittarians. Get them off my ship.
There we go. It's Saul the Drill Man Ty coming in.
This is like the generic racist aboard the Big G. It's like the Sagittarians are like the one group across the entire fleet that it is totally fine to be racist towards.
Well, also, listen, as groundbreaking as the show was, it still was in the mid-2000s, so it's a largely white cast, so they can't necessarily, no minoritized communities to really target.
These stupid Sagittarians. I say we just get rid of them All of them.
There's a reason why Sagittaron and moron rhyme.
Yeah. Dr. Robert had a point, is all I'm trying to say. Dr. Robert had a point.
You know, be the Thanos you wish to see in the world. Dr. Robert was trying to make half of this population vanish as that. But, like, what also really...
You recognized Dr. Robert, yes?
He was one of those faces to me, and it's always tough for me with BSG, because I don't want to Google him, because for all I know, I didn't realize at the end of the episode, but, like, for all I knew, Dr. Robert could have been, like, a new mainstay on the show.
Sure.
Luckily, he was not.
The actor who plays Dr. Robert is someone who we have talked about on another controversial episode, though some people really like that one and some people don't, of Lost. That is the man himself, head of Santa Rosa in Dave.
Yes.
I forget the name of the doctor.
Yes, exactly. So
he's also Dr. Robert.
He has a habit for treating the ill in maybe not the best way possible. But for me, this almost became...
he is like so here's some consistent through lines.
Okay.
There's he is a doctor who doesn't believe in the pain of his patients.
Yes.
In both of those episodes, though in one case the person he's trying to kill is an imaginary character, as opposed to like the imaginary ultimately, but like
they're all
actual
imaginary
characters in Sagittarian. And then so that's linking him to Lost, but to link Bruce Davidson, the actor, to another one of his famous roles, Senator Kelly in X-Men.
Yes, in the original X-Men franchise.
Also a racist, hates mutants, and look where that got him.
But wasn't he also a mutant, if I'm remembering correctly?
He gets mutified.
That's what it is.
The whole point is like Magneto and the Brotherhood. They're trying to like create this like thing that turns people to mutants, and they use Senator Kelly as their first thing. And
I believe he, ironically enough, gets injected.
Yeah, he gets injected with some stuff, and then he turns into like some sort of like globulous water molecule that just like
before Kevin Durant was the Blob.
Yes, he blobs out not as the Blob, but a blob, and then he's like on the table talking to Storm, and then he just like turns into water and just like slimes.
She says, "What happens to a senator when it gets struck by vaccines?" Then
same thing that happens to anybody else. And then it's Rebecca Romaine who poses as Senator Kelly for the rest of it.
That's what it was. This episode may have been lifted a smidge if Rebecca Romaine turned out to be Dr. Robert in disguise.
Possible that there was a shapeshifter. Could there have been a Cylon who replaced Dr. Robert at a certain point? Maybe the original Dr. Robert wasn't such a racist SOB.
Yeah, talk about hiding in plain sight. I'm like, nope, I'm just a doctor doing malpractice. I mean, I will say, Josh, this is going to be a very fundamentally frustrating experience to get into, because it segues from like, some natural intrigue and like, what's this Caprica 6 plot that they completely ditched, to like, essentially what's going to become half an hour of gaslighting Hilo. Being like, this isn't a problem. No, you're wrong. I don't believe it. And then literally, Josh, last 3 minutes, no, you were right. Sorry, go home to your wife and kid. Bye. See you next week.
It's exhausting. So buckle up. I don't know what do you like caffeine pills? What are we going to do to keep us awake to talk about the woman king?
I don't know, take your echinacea, make sure you are of good health, because this episode certainly is not. This episode was ailing, I will certainly say. I was waiting for it to get put down.
An ailing episode of Battlestar Galactica. So let's talk about it, Mike. We get it previously on BSG.
Okay. So we knew, Josh, perhaps, the canary in the coal mine was what we started this episode with, that things were going to be just a little off. And all I can think about, because now you know the reference, is the clip show episode of Community.
Sure.
When they're saying, remember when this happened? Because I believe for the first time ever, there is stuff included on the previously on that has not been part of any main edit or deleted scene in BSG.
It just never happened. The previously on are including all sorts of like old footage of Hilo and a bunch of Sagittarians, and him being sent to manage the Sagittarian refugees. According to our team behind the curtain, the great Ben and Brendan, that this comes from a deleted scene from an episode I think it's from. Which episode is it from? I don't know which episode it's from, but it's been lost to time. I think it's from The Passage, maybe. And losing ships in The Passage, it created more overcrowding. So 300 passengers from the Theresita are coming aboard, including 84 Scorpions, 166 Pycons, and 51 Sagittarians. So this is, I know they're Sagittarons.
Won't be 51 by the end of it.
Sagittarians. Yes, that number will go down. So that's what's referenced in the previously on, which I missed. I typically don't watch the previously on because I could just skip it, but you're watching it on the Blu-ray cover, which you now know has Carl Agathon's face upon it, which after watching...
You know what? I actually had the Hilo experience that I was gaslit by myself for the entirety of like a year and a half thinking it was not Hilo.
Yes, that's right, but it is. It's Hilo. You missed him.
Well, now, I mean, you could say on paper, this is an episode that could be worthy of putting someone on a DVD cover. And then you actually watch the episode itself and you say, you know, maybe you like reserve him for the lower back corner of the back
So
cover.
I want to try and figure out what the Woman King accomplishes in this episode. Like, what is accomplished by the existence of this episode? One of the things that's accomplished is that Carl Agathon, Hilo, what a guy. Heck of a guy. Carl Agathon is a man of justice. This is a guy that when he gets an idea in his head of like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's okay. Does he just like sit and moan about it, Mike? Does he just go back to his Cylon wife and his half Cylon child and say, what a terrible situation we're all in. Gosh, this is hard. How are we going to get out of it? No, Mike, do you know what he does? He gets back out there and he pushes back against the systems he doesn't believe in. He vets the guys that he thinks are off the level. Hilo is not just a hero, a hero.
And a hustler.
That's one thing that's accomplished in this episode. If you didn't get that already, Carl Agathon, man of justice.
I mean, to make another Survivor reference, like, he is much like a famous coconut vendor in that he seeks truth. And these are facets that I really admired in Lee Adama in those early days.
Was that Vince Sly?
Yeah, I was trying to be sly with my Vince Sly. But yes, you clocked it properly.
Look, I know that my references are stuck in the 20s and 30s, but I had to bend my brain for a second. Vince Sly?
I'm just trying to keep you on the up and up, Josh. Now that you're back in it, I've got to quiz you every single week.
I believe he and I share a birthday, if I'm not mistaken.
There we go. But I do think that these are some of the facets that I loved about Apollo, especially in something like Bastille Day, right? That like this was a guy that was willing to question the authority around him, sometimes quite literally, in pursuit of what he felt was right. I admire that. On the other hand, I am incredibly cognizant of the fact that we will never bring up something like this ever again. That I think, unlike Lee, Hilo is not at this moment really incorporated into like the God's master plan of Battlestar Galactica. That this is not necessarily a facet that will carry forward. In fact, Josh, we're going to speak about a deleted scene in which a previous opportunity where Hilo went rogue is brought up and very promptly, lampshadingly swept under the rug, so it will never be mentioned again. And I wonder if the exact same thing is going to happen with the Woman King this episode.
All right, well, let's find out. Let's go in and talk about this. And it begins... this is going to be an all Hilo all the time recap, huh?
There's that one exception of those couple Caprica 6 scenes, but yeah, otherwise it's Hilo-centric.
Yeah.
Much like our galaxy, it's heliocentric.
Why don't we just do the Caprica 6 scene super quick? What happens? She talks to Athena, and Athena's like, I'll get you some clothes, and Caprica 6 is like, oh, thanks.
So this is following up on what I brought up last week, which is like, wow, we're dealing a lot with Athena, but they did take Caprica 6 we're dealing a lot with Baltar, but we did take Caprica 6 as well. Now we find out exactly what's going on with her, that she has been captured, has been put in a holding cell. Athena goes to visit her and is basically like, yeah, I got to admit, I don't know why you helped me get my baby back. And Head Baltar's like, yes, I don't know either. I mean, that's why I'm really thrilled about not only getting more of Trisha Helfer on the show, but like not only bringing her back, but Head Baltar. I really hope her and Baltar meet up and we get like a double date between them and their head versions together. Like, it's going to be massively confusing out the wazoo. But remember, this is a facet that we have not seen of a character in quite some time. It was really that one episode in the end of season 2 that we talked about Caprica 6 and her having a head Baltar. And what does that mean? And basically, Athena says like, you know what? If you don't want to be looked down upon and treated like shit, in the style of Gina, one of the forms of yourself, like, just give them what they want. And we see that Laura Roslin is actually listening in on this conversation. They took their lessons, Josh, from the last episode and bugged the shit out of the place. And actually, let me bring up as well the other non-Hilo stuff, non-Dr. Roberts stuff, which is a warning sign from Tom Zarek. Because as a reminder, Zarek is Roslin's vice president. And so Roslin is going to tell Zarek about what she decided at the end of the last episode, which is like, we're not going to execute Gaius Baltar. We're going to give him a fair trial. He talks like the sky is falling. He says that the media is going to scrutinize your every move. It's going to cause civil unrest because some people will support what you're doing, some people won't. Some people will support him, some people won't. He says this trial is going to bring this entire fleet down. And he recommends if he were in her position, he would declare martial law during the trial so that if and when shit goes south, they'd be able to like truly lock down any sort of possible pressing that might happen amongst the people. And then he walks out to that, and Rosalind's like, usually this guy's a bit of a shit talker, but he truly has fear behind his eyes right now.
Yeah, she says she's never seen him so scared in her entire life. Like that he's like
since when he found out that the original BSG was canceled. It's the most scared Richard Hatch has ever been.
That's it. So just like a very, very, very interesting. That's probably the best scene of the episode, maybe.
Low bar, but kinda, yeah. Because
I mean, I love seeing the late great Richard Hatch anytime we can, and Tom Zarek is such a compelling character, and I do agree that like Tom Zarek being like, this is a bad idea. It's like I do think like sometimes you should just like pay attention to when Tom Zarek thinks something's a bad idea.
It's that Onion article, right? The worst person you know actually made a good point.
Yeah. It's also the first time we've seen Tori in a while, I feel like.
Yeah, and it appears that she truly is like new Billy, because I thought initially she was just like her campaign manager in season 2, but it really does seem like she's now her like de facto aide, right?
Yeah.
Even though we didn't we see new Billy a couple episodes ago, and now he's officially gone?
New Billy was like literally like Ghost of Billy in the background. So I don't know if he was new Billy, but Tori is effectively new Billy. She's Laura's right hand. I don't know have we ever talked about her really before, like in any kind of depth?
Not really, no, because all she was basically last season was like an exposition funnel of like, this is what your numbers are like. Like the only pop-up character we got from her was her involvement in the stuffing of the ballots and how she got involved with all that. But again, it seemed rather supplementary more than anything.
Got it. So you've got no takes on her.
Absolutely none. She is a complete blank slate. I know nothing about her other than like
she's like,
honestly, like she's like, I know that she's in it to win it with Rosalind. She was working alongside her with the revolution and at the schoolhouse, and like that's all I know. Typical Tori, I've got no opinion on her whatsoever.
Typical Tori. All right, well, let's finally go to the Hilo stuff. Hilo, the mayor of Dogsville is his new title. Carl Agathon, mayor of Dogsville, because Dogsville is now what they're calling Camp Oil Slick, which they are now calling Dogsville, I think, because there's Sagittarians there.
And they're like,
again, I know Sagittarians. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep saying Sagittarians because I can't stop myself. The Sagittarians are the denizens of Dogsville.
So Sagittarians, this is really interesting, Josh. And I don't know if there was any explicit mention of this in the Galactic cast, but look, you and I are members of not the 13th tribe, but like a tribe.
A tribe.
Yeah, we're both Jewish. To me, Sagittarians read directly as an allegory for Orthodox Judaism.
Yes.
Like, as someone who has a lot of experience with Orthodox Jews, I think particularly when it comes to the realm of public health, there are certainly a lot of Orthodox Jews, not all of them, but I have certainly experienced them who are very like hard, steady, and fast about the way that they undergo public health, their beliefs about it, and how that might jut up against, especially, I'll say, for example, over the past 5 years, some of the larger public health edicts and how that juts up against their own belief in what they think that they should be, putting into their own bodies. And so that's what I profoundly felt in this episode. I'm not sure if they meant to do that, but that's the immediate jump that I went to.
Yeah. I don't think that that's necessarily what they meant to go for. But I do think that like the idea of exploring the that notion of like science versus faith and the tension that exists there is something we explored a ton on Lost. And I think that what we walked away from Lost thinking that the show is advocating for was like, you got to have a little bit of both. And here that question is getting challenged in a rather unnuanced way. Of like, it's good to have faith, but don't just shun science when it can cure you. And I think it's a more elegant argument to have when the doctor isn't literally trying to kill you. which
Yeah,
is
exactly. Like,
what's going
again,
on.
to your point, the idea was so interesting in this first part of like, okay, how much do we try to, and even like the idea of the final result, right? Which is like, okay, when resources are scarce, is there going to be an inevitability where like they will ask of resources for us that we must contribute to them when at the same time they shirk our science? But it all falls apart, I think, due to just the execution over the concept of when they quite literally have a mustache twirly villain revealed at the end of this.
So they call it Dogsville. Should they have called it like something a little more accurate, like I don't know, like the Killing Floor?
Oh yeah,
like I feel
the
like something like Murdersville maybe would have been better, or is that it's not copyrighted yet at this time?
or like the like slaughterhouse, but take out like the L and U, so it's like the Sag slaughterhouse or something because
Oh,
it's all Sagittarians.
the Sadger House, yeah. So he was gonna run
Badger
into
House
like
rules.
he's gonna run into racetrack. He's gonna talk to Athena. Athena's like, "Don't forget, you're a dad too. You're not just in charge of the SAGs."
So that's the thing is like, well, no, listen, those happened last night actually
Oh
at the
yeah,
time
the
we're
SAG
talking.
Awards. Yeah.
But yeah, so basically Hilo, because this also actually does answer a question that you and I had, which is like, okay, when Ty was brought back on as the EXO, when he was rescued from New Caprica, what happened to Hilo? And the answer of what happened to Hilo was explained in this not previously on, which is like, he got like siphoned off slash basically demoted to like,
Yeah.
okay, you're going to be in charge of handling all of the gripes of these civilians that are now being placed in this holding area inside of the ship. And he's getting now 300 new ones to add on top of that. So yeah, poor Carl is kind of just becomes in this episode as well, just like absolute whipping post
Yeah.
of everything that's happening. Like he's the manager that all the civilians will go to. We'll see later on. There's like a line out the door that is probably just his daily existence of like Hilo just sitting at a desk listening to people complain at him all day. And like I am sure he's thinking, remember when I was like the right hand man of Admiral Adama? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he got demoted to be in charge of the Dogsville community.
he's a Dogsville catcher at this
I'm a
point.
Dogsville man, I
So I
guess.
guess now he ended up saving some lives because he was able to be the right person in the right place at the right time. If he was navel gazing at the top of this naval-like regime, I don't think he would have been able to notice what was
I think
happening.
that
He had to be
yeah,
the boots on the ground.
yeah, I think that that's an interesting point that you raise. So anyway, I guess there you go. Carl Agathon's got a new job. Who dis? And he's gonna go down and watch the refugees show up, and he was telling everybody we're gonna work on the arrangements later. Ty is like kind of in his face. We meet Dr. Robert. It turns out, Mike, there was another doctor all along.
Yeah, so, because remind me, Doc Cottle was on New Caprica, right? Like, I'm pretty sure he got stranded down there at the end of season 2 on the day when the Cylons ended up invading. So, like, he was around. This does help fill in the plot hole a bit of, like, thank God this one guy wasn't in charge of every single civilian on New Caprica. I guess he did have some assistance in the form of Dr. Robert, who's also on board here helping with, you'd say on paper, helping with the civilians, but also probably executing his own fans of execution in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, so he's the new guy. Do you think that so he's a civilian doctor. Do you think that there's some sort of chip on his shoulder because people would call him Mr. Robert all this time?
Please, that's my father.
Yeah. But I didn't go to all these years of civilian doctor school to be called Mr. Robert.
Also, he's that one of those 2 first name guys, right? I believe his name is Michael Robert. That's
Michael
what
Robert. Can't
that's what
trust
Ty
Michael
calls him.
Robert. We cannot trust Michael Robert as far as we can throw him, and I can't hold him because he's an incorporeal character on television.
Let me just say, without offending anyone out there, people say the 3 named guys, those are the serial killers. Maybe a degree away is the 2 first name guys.
Well, we don't know what his middle name is.
Does he have one?
Does he have one? What if he's like Michael Trevor Robert?
Ooh.
Michael Trevor Robert's a serial killer.
Yeah. That's why he didn't reveal his middle name. He's like, I actually go by Michael
Maybe he's actually
Trevor
Trevor Michael Robert, and what he was really mad at were people would always call him Mr. T, and so he had to change to. It's like,
or maybe it's Michael Robert Trevor, and he cut the last name off because then he would be Mr. T.
They were calling him Dr. T. They weren't calling him Dr. T, and so
he
like,
says, I pity the fool who doesn't take their medicine.
Yeah. I pity the poor immigrant who doesn't come here on the big T and talk to me about being actually Dr. T. Yeah. He gets really angry about this. Very upset.
Well, they didn't call in the A team to write this episode. I'll say that much.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Bit of a reach, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so he's like, oh yeah, some people are sick. Some of these people are real sick. Hilo, oof,
Oh,
oof. That's not Dr. Robert.
Melorax syndrome.
Yeah. So there's a guy that Dr.
Which I'm
Robert
pretty sure is
sees.
like, is that where Mork tried to keep going back to? Was Melorac?
Nanu Nanu. So Ty, I guess, is buddies with Dr. Robert, but
Yeah,
Dr. Robert's
he's
like,
an
I
old
got
friend.
stuff to do. Dr. Robert's gonna go and put heads together with Hilo, Ty, Doc Cottle, and Admiral Adama. Like you said, Melorac. Ugh.
Yeah, so basically what spurs this along is that, they're welcoming in all of these new civilians, including Sagittarians, and there's this, like, one young, gawky man who's doing what you might find a lot of people doing in public transit in this particular time of year, which is just, like, hacking up a lung in proximity of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And Hilo is trying to help them. His mother is very standoffish, being like, don't you touch him. I don't want him
Don't
to
you
see a
touch him.
doctor. But
Yeah.
he ends up collapsing and Dr. Robert goes to take him away. And so after the the credit sequence, they're saying, "Okay, think tank, what's going on here?" According to Dr. Robert, it's a pandemic of Melorac syndrome, which is a kidney disease that is not airborne. It is spread through almost akin to AIDS of saliva and sexual intercourse. So luckily, no
Mm.
boots being knocked from what we can tell over in Dogsville. They're not
No.
doing it Dogsyville style, but
Oh my God.
apparently, it's very dire. If you don't treat the first symptoms in 48 hours, it will kill you in 3 to 5 days. And I think all of this is factual. Like Doc Call's not calling him out on it. It's more so the diagnosis that's going to be the problem ultimately.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna try to immunize people. We're gonna try to
Right.
only the ones who show symptoms.
Because
This
they
actually ends up
only,
being an important clue, right? It's like if they're symptomatic, leave them alone. We
but
need to
also
conserve
like,
meds.
yes, exactly. Though they will also then give preventative vaccines to like VIPs on the ship. Hilo will get one, Hera will get one. But this is where we get a real. We've had like some talk about the Sagittarians before, namely that they are incredibly devout people, right? Like this
Yeah.
was going back to the Scrolls of Pythia in
Yes.
season 1, and this is where Ty calls the Sagittarians, quote, stubborn, root-sucking jackasses holding on to traditions that are 1,000 years old.
Yes. Yeah. That is there. There's like is this the root juice?
Yeah, so there's something that they like. Do they imbibe it or they just have it around them that they believe like helps with their overall health that makes them smell just like an absolute funk factory?
Man, it's like some kombucha.
That's what it sounded like, kind of its own form of kombucha, right?
Yeah, the Sagittarians only believe in the medicinal properties of kombucha, which is like part of why they still exist because their like gut health is just out of
Right.
control. Great.
They're pumped full of antioxidants and not much else.
That's about it. That's about it. Okay, so Dr. Roberts like, all right, well, here's the plan. We're gonna try and give the Sagittarians the vaccination. Whether or not they'll use it is another question, because of course, that's a thing.
Can lead a
But we
horse to
gotta
water
offer it. We
and make
gotta
it
offer
drink
it.
my death water. So the real straw that's going to stir the drink here is going to be the titular, the woman king, because like Hilo is going to visit her. She reveals that her son is dead, and she is going to be the big red flag here because she's going to say, like, Hilo's going to say, "I'm so sorry. The disease was fatal. He succumbed to it," and she says, "He died because I made a mistake.
Yes.
That doctor killed my son." And again, on paper, you could just write it off as like these are her incredibly devout, somewhat fringe beliefs that like I succumb my son to the evils of westernized medicine, and that's the God killed him because of that. But no, she is quite literally saying like Dr. Robert has it out for him and he killed my son.
Yeah. So he was like, "Oh man, that sucks. You should. I wish you'd brought him there earlier." She's like, "That wasn't it. This dude's killing us. This guy does not like us."
Yeah, and
And
Detective Hilo, the first thing he picks up on, right, is that Mrs. King said that he was showing symptoms
the
for less
woman
than
King,
the woman King said
who
that,
the episode is named after, the woman King.
which Hilo just drops oh so delicately in the middle of a scene, in the middle of an episode. Nonsensical. Still nonsensical that this is the like, listen, I don't want to garner too many more comparisons to Lost. but do no harm
Yeah.
is right there.
Yes.
It's right there. It could have meant so many different things. In fact, I would say do no harm works better as an episode title than the do no harm in the Lost equivalent. Like, it was so good.
Is there an episode called like Infection yet? Is there an episode something like that?
I don't think there's an episode called him, because even like the storyline of the infection was what? It was torn and a message of salvation.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that we could have workshopped this for a little while longer.
I mean, again, it's clear that maybe in the grand scheme of things, they were not putting as much effort on this as some of the episodes surrounding them. But basically, Hilo's able to kind of pick up on the stories not matching. That the woman king had said, "Oh, my son was only 12 hours symptomatic before he got taken away," and Dr.
And he was
Robert's like,
wait a second.
and Dr. Robert's like, "No, it was like 3 days symptomatic at the point that I took him in."
Yeah, and he was like, And then Dr. Robert goes, Hilo, take off your shirt. And Hilo
I
goes,
need to
"Whoa."
see that hot Carl body.
Yeah. So Dr. Robert is going to give Hilo the vaccine because he put in a good word with Ty on Hilo's behalf. This episode is sort of like a weird Ty Hilo rivalry episode.
Right, because we also got to check in on the previously on that, like, Ty is still not on the pro-Athena side. He's probably the most anti-Athena person that's left aboard on the Big G, just because he can only see her first and foremost as a Cylon, and so him by proxy is a Cylon sympathizer. And also maybe a lot of stuff baked in about, obviously, like, the sacrifices Ty had to make, losing his own wife to, like, help save humanity, and, like, maybe he feels like Hilo's kind of flaunting it in his face unintentionally.
A woman. Ellen.
Exactly. But we get to check in with some of our other characters at our new hangout, Joe's Bar. Where it's just an excuse for like Tyrell and Lee and Starbuck to make their requisite appearances on the show and be like, don't these Sagittarians suck and smell at the same time?
Yeah, he says he was like, man, this is rough out here for the Sagittarians. And Chief's like, I hate Sagittarians, these religious freaks. They live.
I supposed to mention, actually, let me not include Lee in there, because Lee does stick up for, his wife, who is a Sagittarian.
Yeah, but like I fall into this trap as a Jewish person. She falls into the self-loathing Sagittarian trap. She's like, oh, it's all right. We all suck. It's like, no. Come on, everyone relax. She says that they believe physicians spread disease because they believe that the body and mind are myths, I guess, is the Sagittarian. But D says, I'd rather see Dr. Robert instead of Doc Cottle if I got sick. It's like, whoa, what did Doc Cottle do?
Doc Cottle's bad with the needles, is what she says. That, like, listen, he's going to have a lot of problems seeing things in this episode. And that might be in the case in terms of, like, we need an on-site phlebotomist. Yeah. He has trouble jabbing.
Yeah, Lee Fadama needs to get on the ship for sure. Okay, so then we're going to get some of the Athena scenes. We've got the Zarek scene under our belt already. There's going to be Head Baltar talking to Caprica 6 and being like, why do you think you're here? And he's like, don't you want to be a human? And
the trick to being human is you only have to think about yourself.
Yeah. So that's going on. Okay, so the Sagittarians decide to stage a revolution, and attack Dr. Robert.
Because there is there's another set of characters that came on, a father and son whose name is Buckminster. Old Buckminster's dad is dead. He did not guard the palace, and so Buckminster has his dad has fallen.
He's bucked his responsibilities.
Yes, and so Buckminster is going to go buck and peck at Dr. Robert here.
Buckminster.
Yeah. Because apparently Dr. Robert, and maybe this was one of the first signs, Josh, so things were not in the up and up, apparently just snuck into this dude's dorm at night and injected him.
Yeah, he said he wasn't feeling good, so I just decided to go, boop. I just like, he was in pain. What was I supposed to do? So I poked him. And then he was like, wait, aren't we supposed to be rationing? And Dr. Robert's like,
Not if they're causing a disturbance. Like, we all need our beauty sleep.
Yeah, we're supposed to ration it, but not if we're trying to wipe out the entire Sagittarian community.
Oh, did I say the quiet part out loud?
So sorry. I meant to say that internally. I lost my internal monologue. I don't know why I turned into Saul, the drillman. So Hilo goes to Adama and Ty and Coddle.
I'm telling.
And he says, okay, so I'm pretty sure that Dr. Robert's out here killing people. And Colonel Ty really doesn't like it. He likes Dr. Robert. He tells Hilo after a while. Everyone tells Hilo, like, shut up, leave it alone.
Yeah,
And
Adama's like, listen, acknowledge, but also stop making unfounded accusations. A lot of shit's going on, and you got to
there's a
stop the
lot
pandemic.
happening. Ty's gonna follow him out into the hallway and be like, Dr. Robert's the only person who has said anything nice about you in a long time.
Yeah, which is wild because, like, it seemed like Hilo was fairly well.
I feel like Hilo is well liked. I don't know where we're getting this.
Honestly, if I'm gonna say, I think Ty's projecting, but I think Hilo has a better approval rating than Ty at this point.
I agree. Well, I think that Ty bought a lot of approval when he led the resistance. So I think he's still riding high on that. But I don't think Hilo has low approval ratings. I mean, Lee has been kind of shitty about Athena in the past, but basically...
No, but everyone loved... Remember that scene where everyone's like, Athena, this is your name. 3 cheers for Athena.
And even at the start of this episode, like, they're in the hallway, they're walking, and they're like, racetrack, all these people are like, hey, Athena. Like, they like Athena, I think.
Yeah.
I think that they like Athena. They've accepted Athena.
Carl at least has to be, like, associated by proxy. It seems like the only person, when you point a finger, dude, 4 fingers are pointing back at yourself, and that's what's going on with Ty right now. While you were snuggled up in bed with your Cylon wife every night, this guy patched up my eye. And as a result, very cathartically so, Hilo punches Ty in the face.
Yeah, but then Ty is like, haha, you punched me in the eye socket. I've got nothing there. I didn't feel any pain.
Well, I think that's the thing as well, is that, like, Ty is probably the biggest troll on the show. And that's saying something when you have Gaius Baltar on there. Like, it was very clear that he wanted to get a rise out of Hilo and be like, nah, that means you care about something if you hit me. I wanted to get a rise out of you and you fell for my plot.
Yeah, stop trying to hit me and hit me. So he tells Hilo, nice try, but I'm a tougher son of a bitch than that. One punch isn't going to knock me down.
You're not one punch man.
Go get your hand checked, Hilo. So Ty is really giving Hilo the business. Hilo goes back to, I cannot keep calling it Dogsville. He goes back to Dogsville. Athena shows up. Hera is sick. Athena and Hera,
or like I don't think she's sick as much as like he goes to visit Athena and Athena's like, oh yeah, they sent Hera to Dr. Robert to be vaccinated.
Yeah,
and
so
he's like,
what?
When?
And Hera's like, no, don't do it. You don't know what he did to the boy King. This could, like, I don't want him to do anything to my daughter. But she gets the vaccine. It happens. Hilo watches it happen. He lets it go down. And then he tries to talk to the woman King after Dr. Robert gives Hilo, the boy King's wristband. So he's like, hey, here's your son's wristband. And he's like, hey, can I ask you about Dr. Robert? She goes, no.
Yeah, I never thought one man would have that much hate inside of him. And this is when Hilo
Tell me what you think. I think the woman King is giving Angela Petrelli.
Ooh, very fun call, Josh, to our not our lost season, but like I would say maybe our less regarded season of Down the Hatch, our mini season where we covered season 1 of Heroes. Yeah, where she like knows a lot and is right about stuff, but is so withholding about information that could be very necessary at this point in time.
Yeah.
So does that make is Hilo the Nathan or the Peter here?
I don't think he's either. I think that
Big is he the Siler? No. Oh, Dr. Robert's the Siler.
Dr. Robert's the Siler. Hilo's like the Matt Parkman, I think.
Oh, that's such a good comparison.
Yeah. He's the Matt Parkman here, just trying to get to the bottom of the case. He's here. He goes to talk to Athena. He's like, God, I hate this. She's like, it's okay to hate your job. He's like, this isn't my job. They just put me on Dogsville duty.
Yeah, and he sort of like wonders out loud, like, did I do something wrong? Do the writers not like me? Are they like Mike Bloom? Do they find me unremarkable?
Do they just not remember me? And little do they know in the writer's room, they're like, I know we've been giving Hilo a hard time. Having said that, we're going to put him on the Blu-ray cover. That's going to alleviate a lot of this.
Listen, this one episode will not be remembered fondly, but that picture will live forever.
Forever. Carl Agathon goes to visit Doc Cottle, and he goes and he looks through some medical files because Doc Cottle isn't there.
Yeah, you say go to visit Doc Cottle. I would more so say bust into Doc Cottle's office and just start rifling through medical records.
Well, look, he's right ultimately, right? Hilo's following his hunch. Hilo
Yeah,
is Hilo isn't a mind reader like Matt Parkman, but in this case, he may as well be. He's got Dr. Robert clocked. No one else believes him. He can't use telepathy, so he's got to use the resources available to him, and that's a classic tool in the set, Mike, a B&E. He's just going to go and break and enter. That's what he's got. That's what's available.
Yes, and as such, Doc Cottle has some rights to give, like angrily accost him once he finds, because Hilo's looking for autopsy reports on New Caprica, and he does discover some records from New Caprica, which I will also say, like, I mean, good on New Caprica, which was
Impressive.
undergoing a lot of shit under fascistic rule under the Cylons, but like still kept pretty good up and up on who was coming in and how they were dying.
Pretty amazing. Gives me a little bit of hope in our fascist nightmare that people are keeping records of stuff. So that's good. Like, we need to have records of these things.
Yeah, but what he's able to discover, especially in this case, was that all these Sagittarians were coming in and dying of reasons that were completely different from what they came in for, and that a remarkable 90% of Sagittarians died under Dr. Robert's watch.
How much restraint? I maybe should give an MVP point to Dr. Robert for the level of restraint that he practiced, knowing like, if I go a full 100%, I'm caught. So I gotta edit myself. Only 10%.
No, I think it's the exact opposite. I think this man is so uber maniacal. He's like, I'm gonna let the one survive, and they have to live every day knowing that they could have been like the other 9. I'm gonna do survivor's guilt out the wazoo. Imagine having survivor's guilt for 9 other people.
Yeah. He was like, so what do you think of all that data? And Doc Cottle says, what I think is that you suck at this. He was like, look, I know I'm not a doctor. And Cottle says, yeah, that's the smartest thing, the only smart thing you've said since you walked into my room. And he begs Doc Cottle, please do an autopsy on the boy, King. And Cottle says, I did. It was all on the level. Get out of here. Go. You broke into my place. So Hilo leaves.
This is like I would say the umpteenth time that he ends up getting dressed down. And it will obviously, like, maybe is the straw that broke the camel's back of him, like, truly going rogue and being like, okay, I am truly on my own right now. Though I guess it's going to culminate in this next scene with Athena, where it turns out that Dee went to Dr. Robert to get vaccinated. Mrs. Robert is actually going to leave Dogsville, go out the Doggyville door, and go to Hilo and be like, just so you know, your friend is about to get vaccinated, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Robert knows she's a Sagittarius.
How do you think she found him? Was Hilo's scent on the wristband by virtue of like holding it and bringing it to the woman King? And did she just like sniff it and then like seek out his scent elsewhere?
Oh, like a bloodhound. No, yeah. I think it's more so that it's like a college dorm where everyone's quarters have those little whiteboards on the outside of it with like fun drawings and graphics saying who they are. And so they found like home of Athena and Hilo and little baby Hera. She's like, all right, this is the one. I know where to go to.
Yeah. Should this episode have been called The Dog King?
No, because I'm trying to think about who has a dog named King. I feel like there's a famous dog named King in pop culture.
Got to be a lot of famous dogs named King. It'd be better than calling it The Woman Dog, for sure.
Yeah, you know what? It'd be weird if she was the woman dog, because that would honestly, you know what?
Could you imagine an episode of Battlestar Galactica just straight out called Bitch? Like that's the name of the episode of BSG.
Yeah, we're not on network TV. We could just call it episode.
We can say whatever the hell we want.
We'll call it. You know what? Honestly, we found the title for this episode. Life's a bitch, then you die.
Life's a bitch, and then you die would be an infinitely better name for this episode. Okay, so Dee went and saw Dr. Robert, but then the woman, King, seeks out Hilo and says, so 2 more Sagittarians are dead. Please do something. And then Marines show up and take her away. And then,
which also poor on the Marines to like, they were not able to, maybe, I don't know, if Mrs. King had like the speed of an Olympic athlete, but like she was able to outrun the Marines to get all the way to Hilo's room.
Listen, she's from Dogsville. They're fast. They're faster. That's true. Than you think.
If she gets a good smell going on. But yeah, so this is
what is going on this episode. What is happening in this episode?
Yeah, so Hilo is obviously very distraught. He wants to jump in immediately and save Dee, and this is going to cause a lot of strife between him.
Athena's like, relax, Dee's fine.
She's fine. No, these Sagittarians are bringing deaths onto themselves, and Hilo, listen, and one of the rare bad looks for Carl Agathon in this episode, fires back, Or is it because with everyone focused on the Sagittarians, people will forget you're a Cylon for 5 minutes? As much as I
Mm.
wrote in all caps, Carl, Athena is like, I mean, you're kind of right. Like, and that's why I don't want you to draw attention to yourself because you'll make me look bad. I just earned a lot of kudos and credit. I'm the best I've ever looked right now, and I don't want you bringing me down.
Yeah, but then Hilo's like, I love you, babe. Being your husband cannot be my entire personality. Like, if I see something wrong and I just don't say anything because people are going to continue to look at us in shifty ways, I can't. I cannot bite my tongue. I have to go. I think that Dr. Robert is a liar and that he's killing people because he's a racist son of a woman dog. So he is after Dr. Robert, and he's going to go down back to Dogsville, and he finds D basically dead. D is for dead.
Dogsville, catatonic in Dogsville.
She's catatonic at Dogsville. She's been put down. And it turns out, no, she's still alive. And whatever Dr. Robert gave me really kicked the frack out of me.
Hilo hulks out in this moment. Like, he starts going wild. Like,
nuclear.
Because he's trying to take D to go see Doc Cottle. Dr. Robert checks in. Hilo is like roaring at him. Then they call in security, and Hilo just starts going like full cap in the elevator, just starts taking out all these guys.
He was a big boy. He is. He's a large dude.
Listen, like, he got a little taken down by Starbuck, but like he can put up a fight.
He can.
And so he takes down a few before he ends up getting restrained.
And Dr. Robert's like, arrest this man. Call security.
Officer, send him to the brig.
Send him to the pound. And I love the show. Like, they cut to Ty and Coddle with security walking down the hall and watching this, because I didn't remember how it ended because I don't think about this episode. They're walking down the hall, and I'm like, man, that's really fast. That, like, how did that happen? And then they show up, and Colonel Ty tells Dr. Robert, shut up! All of you, shut up! It's like he's like the judge. He's Harris Yulin in Ghostbusters 2, about to give the chair to he gave the chair to the Scolari brothers. But he's here and he's saying, you fracking son of a gun. You fracking son of a woman, king, a woman dog. And he like is really giving it to him. And Dr. Kyle's like, look, I got this wrong. This dude's absolutely killing people. I really didn't want to look because I'm the only doctor, and it's a lot of pressure. And there was
I'm just like the most tired I've ever been in my life.
My whole life.
I put hot dog up my sleeve, but he wouldn't fit.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Hilo's out here Carl Havocing.
Just don't want to be around anymore.
Too much shit on him. He can't breathe. And so Dr. Robert's like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I don't know it. And then he looks at Hilo and says, why are you coming after me? You should be thanking me. I saved your daughter's life. And yeah, am I killing Sagittarians? I am. I'm doing it. I'm making tough choices to conserve medicine.
Yeah. Look at them. They're going to destroy themselves anyway. They're like worms crawling on a hot rock.
Yeah. Yeah. They smell. They stink. They suck.
So basically what he is putting forward is like, listen, these people are a suck on our amenities, our limited resources. Remember when we had to go suck on algae for a brief 2-part episode?
What a great insult we should be implementing more often. Suck on algae.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it feels euphemistic, but not too inappropriate in that way. Yeah. But basically, he's saying, like, I'm making the difficult choices that you can't. You, the military that made all of these sacrifices as recent as the first regular episode of the show. I'm the one that has the gall to do what you can, where I single-handedly murder all these innocent people.
Yeah. I did it for you. So they end up arresting him, and I am pretty certain we never see this guy again. What do you think happens to him?
Airlock.
Yeah,
maybe
they should. Honestly, they're starved on resources. Maybe they should be sending people to him that aren't Sagittarian. Like, maybe other people to him in like doctor jail so that he can continue doing doctor stuff. We cannot have Doc Cottle as the only doctor. Even if the
No,
other doctor is a murderous psychopath, I think we still need to use him on the people we know he's not going to murder.
I don't know. Remember in the season 2 premiere, like there were surgeons that are around. There are medical professionals, just not like has highfalutin as Doc Cottle. I think the ultimate irony should be, Dr. Robert, I see here on your ID card that you're an organ donor. So we're going to carve you up. And anytime
Wow.
those Sagittarians need something,
Yeah.
they're going to get it from you.
Yeah. And we're going to do it a la carte as well. We're not going to take it all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was gonna say, I mean, I'd say just kill him, because otherwise,
No. We're gonna keep him alive so you can really think about what you've done.
yeah, I would say though, like, it's got to be airlock. I mean, look what they did, the freaking like tribunal did with all of the other people like Jammer, who they said like humans were killing other humans. We can't do that. Was this guy not just doing the exact same thing?
Can I tell you that my favorite part in the notes that are provided to us by the great Ben behind the curtain, he describes this scene as Dr. Robert tries to appeal to Ty's racism. An unbelievable sentence, which is accurate.
Always reliable cornerstone. Unfortunately, not too reliable here. Even Ty has a breaking point. Like, I may be racist, but Dr. you Robert's broke my friendship.
Yeah, but you broke my fracking heart. Like, Dr. Robert tells Ty, he says something to the effect of like, how about all those times you called them damn dirty Sagittarians? And Ty's like, I'm not going to refute that, but I hate being wrong more than I love being racist against Sagittarians.
And that says a lot.
That says a lot. So he gets arrested. Adama's going to summon Hilo to his quarters. Adama with like the more you know ending of the episode, which is hate and allowing hate are two sides of the same coin. I'm sorry.
G.I. Joe!
Yeah, exactly. So Hilo salutes him and goes back to his wife and kid. And that, my friends, was an entire fracking episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Why did they end like that? Like, is that not the complete final side of like, yeah, we don't know about this, the half amount of effort we put into this episode of like, and then Adama sort of apologizes, and then he just goes back and sees his family, who, you know, Hilo got into this like pretty big argument with earlier the day, being like, hey, all I'm known for on this show is being your husband, and I don't want that anymore. But that doesn't matter anymore. They're just going to embrace, and I guarantee you, Josh, we are not going to talk about this incident moving forward.
All right, Mike, let's talk about our MVPs and LVPs of this episode. This ought to be fairly easy, right? It's going to be like a lot of Hilo, a lot of Dr. Bobby.
Yeah, there really is not. I guess that's the advantage of this episode, is that it's not nearly as nuanced as an ensemble filled as all of the other ones we talk about, where there's only a select few to pick from in both directions.
Yeah. So
to that point, I'll just say I have 2 MVP points. They're both going to Hilo. There are few and far between MVPs to pick here, besides maybe Mrs. King, just because like everyone else spends the vast majority of the episode loudly declaring that Hilo is wrong when they are in fact wrong.
Yeah, I'll give Hilo a point as well. So that's 3 for Carl. And then I've got 2 others to hand out. And just to make sure she's immortalized, I will give a point to the woman, King, who also, like, beyond just wanting to immortalize her, how fast. Just so fast.
That's so speedy.
So fast.
Maybe she is a Cylon, because that's kind of superhuman speed she's moving at.
Let me ask you a question. If it someday gets revealed that the woman, Cylon, is Mrs. King.
Well, first off, there would need to be a man joined by her called Scarecrow. So we can say it's both Scarecrow and Mrs. King. It'd be wild. I mean, I guess there is precedent for it in the form of like Simon and Deanna were initially introduced as like one-time guest stars, right? Of like, hey, this random character that got introduced is actually a Cylon. In terms of her motivations, why would she want to stop it? You know, if the goal is to wipe out humanity, should she not be aligning herself with Dr. Robert? Though I guess, would that make the boy king, the little prince, a Cylon as well? Or was this like, or is this sort of like a you've been assigned a human child that you must raise as your son?
Maybe. I struggled for my final MVP point. I didn't want to just give another one to Hilo because it felt like we should spread it a little more.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, I want to give it to Doc Cottle for being like, all right, I took another look. Yeah, and
Yeah,
also, like, I really didn't want to because I'm really, like, overworked, but yeah, this dude's killing people. So, like, coming around, I gave him a point for, but I was very close to giving him an LVP, which I know you did do.
yeah, because
So
like, yeah,
good
let's.
news is,
I mean, the good news is it's not too little, too late. The bad news is it almost was because
yeah,
this guy spends again the vast majority of the episode adamantly saying like, "No, Hilo, you're wrong. I did the autopsy. It's Malarek syndrome," and then has to say like, "Well, because I was sleepy, I didn't do the blood work and realize that yeah, this guy is doing malpractice, and is actually committing a crime. So sorry."
yeah. I was tired. I'm sorry.
I actually
I'm
would love if the
sorry.
actor who played Doctor, as much as I hate baby voice, if he talked like that, that would be like the one exception to the rule.
Yeah, I don't know. Then we're piling on Dr. Robert. 3 LVP points going to Dr.
Yep.
Robert from me and Mike.
Yep. Two from me, one from you.
Then I gave an LVP point to the Sagittarians because I just hate
You
them.
dirty,
I hate them
dirty
so much.
man.
I just hate them so much, and I feel like, you
Well,
know,
this is your listen.
the
The
only thing
whole
I hate more than Sagittarians, Mike, is being wrong.
yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Exactly. But listen, it's the hard and fast
They
rule you
die.
gotta
They
stick
die.
to.
A
Yeah,
lot of them
exactly.
die. I
This
gotta give them
that's
an
your this
LVP.
that's your Hippocratic oath. That's like your do no
No, that's
harm. Is
my
like
Dr. Robert excuse. That's what I'm saying to obfuscate the fact that I'm
and that's
just
what and then
giving it
and as
to
we're
them because I
hauling
hate
Dr. Robert off
Sagittarians.
into LVP jail, he's like, "You should be grateful, Josh. I gave you plenty of people to give points to."
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. Screw the Sagittarians. Screw the Sagittarians, man. Who knows if
Man,
they're
who
even
knows if they're even
real?
real?
Uh, Cylon versus the Fleet. Who won this week, Mike? Is this another NA?
It's gotta be NA. Like the only Cylon contact we have is Caprica 6, and like she's just twiddling her thumbs in a holding cell.
Yeah, I think so. So that's
Got it. Was it back to back NAs here?
three NAs. Having gone through 2 full seasons without a single NA, we have 3 now this season. Makes you wonder if we went back and looked at some of those previous Colonel ties. Are they actually Colonel NAs? Okay. I don't know. There are currently 20 wins for the fleet, 12 for the Cylons, 10 Colonel ties, and 3 NAs. So if we're collapsing NA and Colonel tie as a category, that has happened more often than the Cylons have won.
Not
Worth
looking good for
shouting.
the Cylons at this moment. Like they had a couple of very big wins, but those have largely gotten rolled back in lieu of some Colonel ties.
So let's rate the episode on a scale from 0 to 4.2, which of course you all can do as well when you email us down the hatch RHAP at gmail.com. On a scale of 0 to 4.2, Mike, I do believe that this is among the very worst episodes of the show. I think it is the second worst episode of the show. I gave Black Market a 1.
Oh.
And I don't think I'm ever going to give an episode another score that comes close to that, which is, speaks very highly of BSG, as I've said before, right? Like it's consistent. Like it's largely going to live in that like 3 to 3.8 area is how I
Yeah.
feel about this show more often than not. So I will give this to denote it as the second worst episode of BSG for me. I'm going to give it a flat 2. I'm going to give it a flat
Okay.
2. I enjoyed some of what happened in the first portion. I really do like that Zarek scene quite a bit. I even really do like, even though we didn't spend much time on it, I liked Athena and Caprica 6. I like when Athena says, yeah, I care about you. Like, it was just like a great Athena moment. But the rest of it, like, none of this matters. It's just not very compelling. And if an episode comes later down the line that I feel is worse than a 2.0, I will readjust my Woman King score to put it closer to the Black Market score, which was a 1. But for now, 2, as in my second least favorite episode of Battlestar Galactica.
I'm really having a tough time even in this moment. I purposely left my score blank going into this because I am trying to figure out if I liked Black Market or the Woman King less. Because the Woman King, I would say, is a more well put together episode. I think a lot of our struggles with Black Market came from the fact that just structurally it is an absolute mess. This, I think, had more there in terms of the concept. And again, even on paper at the beginning and the end, some of these philosophical debates of like sacrifices for the greater good. but it comes at the cost of much more ham-fisted execution that is so uncharacteristic of the show. So I think I did talk myself into liking it more, but only slightly. I gave Black Market a 1.5.
Okay.
I will listen in an episode that is all about trying not to be in close contact with the infected. I'm going to keep these 2 episodes quarantined. I will give The Woman King a 1.6.
Oh
I
no,
will
the
keep
numbers
them
are bad.
I will keep them, yeah, exactly, right next to each other,
16, the numbers
huddled
are cursed.
away from all the other episodes. So let's bring this up right now, Josh, because you and I, during our what is it called, fortnight off,
Yeah.
2 weeks,
Yes.
you had thrown out a Lost episode comparison.
Yes.
And I think was really interesting to get into as to, again, this larger conversation as to which episode is worse.
Yes. My comparison was effectively to compare it to Lost. I think that Black Market is Stranger in a Strange Land, and The Woman King is Fire Plus Water. That was what I posited to you, which was to say that Black Market is the episode that people think of as the worst episode, in the same way that people think of Lost. They think of Stranger to Strange Land. But in our evaluation, we maybe felt that Fire Plus Water was actually the worst episode, and maybe The Woman King is the actual worst episode of BSG. That's not where I landed ultimately, but that was my theory going into the watch of this episode. There's just really nothing in Black Market that elevates it at all. There's at least I like Carl Agathon maybe a little more than you do. And I do think I like Tamo Pennicat. I think that he is a great actor. I think that he's a very earnest guy as Carl Agathon. So I don't mind him getting a full episode. I really just wish that they'd given him a better one.
Yeah, so I actually think you really unlocked something for me when you made that comparison, because I actually think even the substance within these episodes kind of matches up, where Black Market was taking one of these lead characters, shoehorning in these flashbacks that we didn't know about them in the first place that were not really well done, putting him in an environment with a character that we didn't care about, bringing in the warden from Sawyer's episode of Lost. He was sort of like the equivalent of Isabel, of oh, I guess this character is important even though we'll never see them again. And getting to see this character kind of act unscrupulously and in a really low place. This episode is a large amount of the characters we know and love, let's face it, acting pretty illogically and not in a manner that we necessarily think, where again, the entire episode is basically the entirety of the staff being like, no, Hilo, you are stupid and you are dumb. Why are you pursuing this? Dr. Robert is a good man. Oops, I'm wrong. And not to say Fire Plus Water was gaslighting Charlie, but it certainly was an episode where Charlie did some bad shit, where he stole a baby and tried to baptize it. But it also had all of these characters fiercely turned against him. And it even culminates in a punch to the face. Hilo punches Ty in the face. Locke punches Charlie in the face. So the more I thought about it, there is a lot of similar DNA, not the 3NA that we have right now with our episodes, between both equivalents of those episodes. But even though I think Fire Plus Water is the worst Lost episode, I do think by a hair, Black Market is worse than The Woman King here. But a very apt comparison for you to make, Josh.
All right. Before we frack off, Mike, anything that we want to do? There's an extended version of the final scene as our deleted scene.
Okay, so this is another interesting confounding swirl in this disgusting cheese Danish that is this episode, which is that we get a tag on, again, the slapdash final scene of Adama being it's just as bad to hate something as to enable someone to hate something. I'm really sorry I did that. And Hilo's like, all right, I'm not all good. By the way, remember that 2-parter in the middle of the season where I turned off the air, where all those disease Cylons were held and murdered all of them? Sorry, that was me. And Adama is like, are you stating this as your confession? Because if you do, here's the exact process that will happen. You'll be immediately arrested and thrown in the brig. You'll be put on trial and you'll probably be executed. And Hilo goes, okay, I'm not going to give a statement. And that's it. And that, to me, Josh, is a clear indicator from the writers as to say, what Hilo did, that morally ambiguous choice that is the heart of the series, will never, ever be talked about again.
We won't talk about it. We'll never talk about it again.
Wild. It baffles me that the show says, all right, we're never going to embrace it again, but we have to bring it up right now to inherently state we're never going to bring it up again.
Never.
Like, just leave it. Let it be. There's so many plot points. We have characters like Boxy, who's just in the corner, wasting away.
Yeah, where's our Boxy episode? When we're doing the woman king, why aren't we doing the Boxy king?
I mean, maybe he shows up in the series finale like Minkus style. But like, just absolutely wild to me that they chose to write in like, well, we've got to fill in, we've got to mention that Hilo did this morally questionable thing. But then they do nothing about it. They just acknowledge it, and they say we're never going to mention it again. So
we
there
do not
you go,
have
fans.
to go back. We do not have.
It's not filling in a plot hole. It's pointing out the hole on the side of the road and saying, "Well, we just won't drive over that.
Yeah, we'll just drive around it."
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. That's not infrastructure. That's not how you do infrastructure as a writer. It's wild to me.
Or as someone responsible for roads.
Yeah.
Fill the hole.
Fill the hole. Fill the hole. Don't say that's a hole. Now that's a hole. All right, see you tomorrow.
Fill the hole.
Fill the hole. Like what a great, that and the previous one are like the perfect microcosms of like, I don't know, like all my heart goes out to the people who have the toughest jobs in Hollywood of writing these things and making sure everything is pieced together. But this just screams to me like, well, we have a 20 episode order. We don't know exactly what to do. So I don't know. Hilo fights Dr. Death. Sure, we'll make that an episode.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it. There's 11 fracks. Hilo gets 3 of them. Ty gets 4 of them. Chief, Athena, and D also get a frack each, and some rando gets a frack. 114 fracks in season 3, 325 fracks so far overall. No jumps to add. I assume no changes to Cylon. Anything for you?
No, I mean, it wasn't a great look for Athena, but I don't think she was as out of character as a lot of the other senior brass and like their castigation. Like she had some concerns for her husband, but he also had some rather uncouth things to say back to her.
All right, Mike. I think that the woman king should have been called Dr. Robert in tribute to the Beatles, because the next episode of Battlestar Galactica, season 3, episode 15, A Day in the Life, also a Beatles song.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, they're going through his catalog, or their catalog, I should say. A day.
Woke up, got out of bed, a frackin' Cylon sat on my head.
Now I look like Hilo.
A Day in the Life, Mike. What do you expect to see?
I wanted Sergeant Tyrrell's Lonely Hearts Club Band coming up in the next episode.
Could you imagine if every single Battlestar Galactica episode contained some sort of reference to the Beatles?
That would be amazing. I mean, they have like a super wide catalog. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not as deep of
Mike,
a well.
throughout the entirety of the podcast, I've just been dropping in stealth Beatles references the entire time, and you've had no idea, in tribute to the fact that there was an alternate reality where Ronald D. Moore was going to title every episode of BSG after a Beatles song.
No,
it's not true. It's not true.
Dragon fruit, right? Like you haven't.
Yes, dragon fruit. Dragon fruit. Ferragamo.
I don't know if I can believe you. I don't
Dragon
know if
fruit, Ferragamo. Those are my words.
Okay.
You can trust them.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So maybe there's some other artists' work that you're just surreptitiously dropping in. I'm not. I don't know where. Yeah, artists. Artists. But I'm going to say that I'm hoping A Day in the Life. I'm not going to say it's a bottle episode. I think it'll be more of a honed in episode that will follow one particular character around for a day on the Big G. I think.
Who will it be? It's Carl again.
Oh God! Like, all right, now we're gonna see how he deals with. Yeah, really, don't tempt me with a good time, please, Ronald D. Moore. I think it would make the most sense for me for it to be Bill Adama. I feel like we got a little bit of like a peek into his own ethos in Unfinished Business, but otherwise. I don't know. It kind of seems like EJO has like been a little bit on the back foot, has been like largely a reactor to a lot of stuff rather than the actor. Because we already had like our big Baltar episode. Maybe we could do it with like Caprica 6, but like is her day in the life just kind of sitting in her holding cell? Unless could we do a bit of like the opposite of a bottle episode? Could we do a whole Mind Palace projection episode where we go through like a Caprica 6 is like, well, this place sucks. Let me go someplace nice. And then we take a look at A Day in the Life. if we didn't have all the flashbacks and unfinished business, I would say maybe this is where we get like our big new Caprica flashback, where it's like, okay, this is a day in the life of like the most important day on New Caprica. But something tells me it's just going to be like following one character around for the entirety of like Bill Adama's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day that exists aboard the Big G.
All right. Well, we'll find out a day in the life in a week in our lives later from now. We will be back next week talking about season 3, episode 15 of BSG, A Day in the Life. Make sure you are subscribed down the hatch wherever you get your podcast. Send in your feedback down the hatch, rhap@gmail.com. You can also follow us on the internets. I'm at Round Howard. Mike Bloom at a Mike Bloom type, talking about all sorts of stuff, including but not limited to Survivor 48 premiering this week. Mike's got all the coverage you could possibly want over on Parade.
Yeah, like
coming back online.
Yeah, you don't need to break into Doc Cottle's office to find out all the records about these people, because I am airing them out in the open. I had the chance to go there, talk with all of these people. Of course, with the premiere coming this Wednesday, I got to be out there for the first 3 days, so I will have plenty of behind-the-scenes insight, as well as, of course, my exit interview with the first person voted out. And then Australian Survivor, I'm still covering that. The big thing, Josh...
I'm current on it, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Okay, maybe I'll drop in another Australian Survivor reference. I mean, this episode kind of felt like the equivalent.
Should they have kicked one of the Sagittarians off of the out of Dogsville and sent them over to PyCon?
No, what they should have done is they should have the Dr. Robert's like, I have the bracelet of the Woman King's son, and then he burns it and then admits to it. It's like, aha, I was trying to throw Hilo under the bus, but actually I was the one who did it.
He walked up to the Woman King wearing the bracelet around his neck, being like, yeah, I found this. It's the big deal.
Yeah, and then also is like, I've been applying to get on the Big G for 10 years, and this is how I spend my time.
This is how I do it.
So the other big thing is that the reality flash, I mean, the idea of the podcast, right, is to like pop in your eyes and ears whenever big breaking news happens. And truly when it rains, it pours. So on Friday, I put out one that was sort of like a potpourri of a bunch of blind items from a bunch of different shows, some allegations that are coming out, some actual arrests that are happening, much like Dr. Robert. And then Saturday, this big news came out from this really fantastic time at the Survivor Beach Drop and premiere. Shout out actually to the couple of hatchlings I found out in the wild.
Oh, we always love that.
Yeah, they're like, why did you skip the Woman King? And I'm like, did you really want me to immediately speak about the Woman King? So I hope it lived up to expectations, you two, and it was so nice meeting you. Go Bills. But at that night, Jeff Probst revealed that there's this fun new fan voting theme for Survivor 50. If you want to hear all about it, I talked about it on the podcast, talked about it at Parade. And then on Sunday, there was this big expose about The Bachelor and how, the senior staff in this episode were acting rather unscrupulously. It turns out that might translate to another franchise as well. So it just goes to show that, like, when and whenever reality news pops up, I will try to put it in your eyes and ears.
Mike Bloom will be there. Yeah.
As quickly as I can to give you what you need to know when you need to know. So if you want to check out all that and make sure you don't miss a beat of whenever anything could drop, therealityflash.com.
Plus, if you become a patron of RHAP, you can go behind the scenes on this past weekend's huge Survivor event in New York City. Mike got together with RHAP's very own Sam Moore and a dude named Brandon Donlin to talk about what went down. I'm looking forward to pressing play. Furthermore, if you're a patron of RHAP, you can get the patron exclusive Survivor Heroes versus Villains 15-year anniversary rewatch that I am doing with the great Rob Sesternino. We are on to episode 3 this week, so we're having a blast reliving HVV. So lots of great content if you become an RHAP patron. Go to robhasawebsite.com/patron to sign up.
And since we last came on the line here, Josh, you got to go on a very personal podcast. You appeared on Pod Friends with a great friend, Matt Scott. I'm in the middle of it right now, and it is an absolutely incredible time. And look, you have been one of the many amazing things about getting to do this process with you, Josh, over the past 5+ years is like you have been so incredibly open through, the lens of Lost and other shows about what you're going through in that moment. Lost meets you where you are. And so if people are looking for more opportunities to get to know, what your current state of mind is, your entire process of getting to that state of mind, could not recommend more people go check it out and hear even more from the great man that is Josh Wigler.
Man, maybe I should go back and listen to it because it sounds like I was pretty positive on that one. And right now I'm just feeling utterly defeated by life. So maybe old Josh Wigler has some wisdom. That's also why The Woman King was delayed. We recorded a version of The Woman King that I was not proud of. So we ended up scrapping it.
Yeah, this is the version that you're most proud of.
Yeah, this is the second take of The Woman King. All right, well, go check out all of that incredible stuff here on RHAP. Plenty more on We Know Scripted TV as well. Tastemakers every week. We've got White Lotus podcasts, Severance podcasts, anything you could possibly need right now here on RHAP. Next week, A Day in the Life. Until then, frock off!